She didn't cry at the funeral. Not when they lowered her mother's coffin into the soil. Not when the priest mumbled something hollow about peace. Not even when the wind blew through the pines and she could swear she heard her mother's voice, whispering her name. But she cried 2 nights later, alone in the kitchen of a house that still smelled like regret and old cigarettes, holding a letter written in her mother's looping hand, folded and yellowed like it had waited years to be read. If you find this, it means I couldn't hold it back any longer. The roots are too deep. The widow won't wait forever. Marla Vale hadn't been back to Silver Pines in 17 years. The town hadn't changed much, still choked by fog, still leaning into the woods like it expected to be swallowed. But the house had grown eyes. She could feel them, watching her from under the floorboards, behind the peeling wallpaper. Beneath the pinewood paneling her mother always swore she'd tear down and never did. The letter trembled in her hands. She read it 3 times and still didn't understand it. The widow, some kind of metaphor? Her mother had been strange, sure, obsessive, paranoid near the end, but this wasn't poetry. This was fear. Real, visceral, final fear. The last line chilled her more than the autumn air leaking through the warped window panes. Don't go near the roots when the moon turns red. It'll know you're here. She lit a cigarette she didn't really want and stepped out onto the back porch. The forest loomed beyond the fence, thick and black as spilled ink, the pine trees rising like gravestones. The same woods where she used to build forts and pick mushrooms and pretend she was anything but her mother's strange, twitchy daughter, took one drag before snapping the cigarette in half and tossing it into the wet leaves. There was a smell in the air, sweet and wrong, like flowers rotting in the ground, like something blooming where it shouldn't. She turned back toward the door and stopped. Carved into the wood just above the handle, faint but unmistakable, was a shape she hadn't noticed before. A crescent, bent like a sickle, with a single vertical line slashing through it. Her hand hovered above it, the air cold around her fingers. She didn't remember seeing that when she came in. She didn't remember anything about last night, actually, not after the bottle of cheap bourbon, the echo of her mother's voice, and the storm that never came. She stepped back. Somewhere behind her, deep in the woods, a twig snapped. Then, silence. Not the peaceful kind, the listening kind. She tried to laugh. It came out dry, hollow, like the house itself was waiting for her to finish the sentence. But what really happened beneath those trees? If you've ever felt something scratching at your memory, like this story, so it can haunt someone else too. Marla hadn't planned to see anyone. She came back to bury a body, not exhume a town full of ghosts. But when she stepped onto Main Street that morning, coffee in one hand, unopened letter in the other, the past found her anyway. The bell above, the shop door jingled like it was mocking her. She barely recognized the place. Vale's grocery had become something shinier, colder, a shell with better lighting. Behind the counter was a man she hadn't seen in a decade. Gideon Mars, tall, pale, eyes like old paper, creased at the edges, hard in the middle. He stared for a second too long. "I heard about your mom," he said. "I was going to stop by. Then I figured you wouldn't want the reminder." She raised an eyebrow. Of her or of what happened after? He looked away. Of both. They didn't speak for a moment. The hum of the cooler filled the space between them. The town had gotten quieter, or maybe she just wasn't used to the silence anymore. In the city, you could always outrun a memory. Here, they waited for you. "You staying long?" he asked. "Just long enough to finish what she started." That made him stiffen, barely. But she caught it. "You still live out by the North Tree?" "Line?" she asked. "Yeah," she nodded. "Then you remember the stories." He didn't respond, just scanned the barcodes on her items with mechanical precision. "I found a mark," she said. That got him. His hand twitched. The scanner dropped. She stepped closer, lowered her voice. "Crescent, carved into the door. It wasn't there before, and I don't think it was meant for her." Gideon looked up, jaw tight. "Did she mention the roots?" Marla froze. "What?" "Nothing. No, say it." But he was already shaking his head. "If you're smart, You'll leave it alone. The letter said not to go near them. She called it the widow. You know what that means, don't you? He opened his mouth, closed it again, then leaned in just enough for her to feel the cold press of truth. Your mom wasn't the first to write about the widow, he said, but she might be the last to die for it. Marla stepped back. You're hiding something, but what? Gideon didn't answer, but as she turned to leave, she noticed something on his forearm. A faded scar, thin and crescent-shaped, just barely poking out from beneath his rolled-up sleeve. He caught her staring. Don't go back into those woods, Marla. She left without replying. Could you forgive the friend who vanished in the night? Drop your answer below. The woods have long memories. She didn't mean to fall asleep. One moment she was staring at the photograph taped to the fridge. Her and her mother, years ago, smiling in front of the old pine behind the house. The next, her eyes were closed, and something was whispering, a name from under the floorboards. The dream was wet, that's the first thing she remembered. Her feet sank into black earth. Pine needles clung to her skin like spider legs. Above her, the sky was full of branches that moved without wind. A voice whispered again, dry, papery, like breath passing through leaves. You promised. She turned, the forest twisted around her. And there, beneath the great tree, its bark split with glowing red lines like veins, stood her mother, or something shaped like her mother, hair draped across her face like seaweed, skin slick and too pale, fingers too long, eyes hollow. You promised me, Marla, but you left me here. The roots cracked open beneath the tree like a mouth. Something moved inside them, wet, slithering, many-legged. She tried to run, but her legs wouldn't move. The tree groaned. The roots reached up and wrapped around her ankles. Then the voice came again, but deeper this time, not her mother's. The widow waits. You are marked. The pact is not forgotten. Marla screamed and woke to the sound of a knocking. Sharp, sudden, coming from the floor. She bolted upright, sweat slicking her back. Her mouth was dry. Her hands were trembling. The clock said 3:17 a.m. She waited, nothing, but when she turned to check the floorboards, she saw it. A fine trail of dirt, leading from the basement door to the center of the kitchen, and at the end of it, a pine cone. Fresh, damp, placed gently in the middle of her welcome mat. She knelt, reached for it, and froze, because beneath the pine cone, etched into the wood, was a familiar mark. The crescent, with the slash through it, burned into the boards, still faintly warm. She backed away, chest tight, breath hitching. Did I put that there? Am I dreaming still? She didn't remember going into the woods, but her shoes were muddy by the door. She didn't remember unlocking the basement, but the deadbolt was undone, and in the mirror over the sink, just for a moment, a reflection didn't move. When she did, it stared at her, head tilted, then smiled. She blinked. It was gone. Could the monster be her? Some secrets can't be buried. Share this before someone else opens the wrong door. The next morning, Marla found the second letter. It wasn't hidden, just waiting, tucked between the pages of her mother's old herbal journal, under a pressed pine needle and a faded photo. A photo of the two of them, Marla maybe 8 or 9, kneeling beside the massive pine at the edge of the property. Her mother had drawn a red circle around the base of the trunk and written in small, careful script, the widow's route, entry point, Pact site. She didn't remember that day, didn't remember the photo being taken, didn't remember the mark carved into the bark in the background, a crescent, unmistakable. The letter beneath it was shorter than the first, sloppier, almost frantic. I'm sorry I lied. I'm sorry I broke the pact, but I had to choose you. They said one or all, I chose you. Marla read it twice before her hands started shaking. That night, her dreams didn't wait for sleep. She was back under the tree, only this time it wasn't raining. The blood moon hung full and low above the branches, casting long shadows across the earth. Someone was standing at the base of the trunk, not her mother, younger, dressed in an old nightgown, hair tangled, hands stained with dirt. A girl, maybe 13. You remember me? The girl asked. Marla's mouth was dry. No, the girl tilted her head. You were supposed to take my place. She stepped aside. Behind her, the bark of the tree split open like an old scar. Inside, bones, dozens of them, tiny, childlike, half swallowed by roots. One must be given, the girl whispered, or one is taken. Marla stumbled back, her heart pounding. She looked down and saw the mark glowing on her own chest, pulsing in time with the trees. Breath. Your mother chose, the girl said, but she didn't break the pact. She just passed it on. Marla jolted awake, gasping. The house groaned in the wind. The basement door creaked, and in the distance, from somewhere deep in the pines, she heard laughter, childlike, echoing. She clutched the second letter to her chest, choking on the betrayal. Her mother hadn't protected her. She'd sacrificed someone else, and now the curse had come due. She pressed her hand to the window, staring out into the dark. What if I had to choose too? What if it's not over? If you had to betray one to save many, would you? Still here, you're already marked. Stay till the end, or run while you can. Could you live with a betrayal that saved lives? Comment your answer. The air changed just after midnight. Marla had locked every door, turned every light on, salted the windows, not because she believed in it, but because her mother did. And when the wind stopped blowing, and the silence hit that strange, hollow frequency, she knew it was coming. The floorboards creaked, not from age, but weight. She gripped the old crowbar she'd found in the garage, knuckles white. Then, from the hallway, a click, slow, rhythmic, like claws tapping against wood. She moved toward the noise, breath shallow. One step, two. Then a shape lunged from the dark. She screamed, swung, caught it midair. The crowbar cracked against something solid, shoulder, maybe skull. The thing snarled, recoiled. It hit the ground hard, groaning. Not a monster, a person. Gideon. He was shaking, face pale, eyes full of some unknowable pain. His arm bent wrong, and through the shredded fabric of his shirt, Marla saw it, the mark, burned into his chest, fresh, or still bleeding. I tried to hold it back, he gasped, but I think it followed you. She dropped beside him, trying to stem the blood. What followed me? What are you talking about? He grabbed her, wrist, grip strong despite everything. She's not in the roots anymore. You broke it open. The lights flickered. The air grew thick, moist, rotted, like earth ripped from a grave. Then came the sound. Not a howl, a moan, long, low, almost human, almost. Marla turned toward the stairs. The basement door was open. She didn't remember unlocking it. Roots slithered from the darkness, thick as arms, gnarled like bone, dragging themselves across the floor. She froze. One of them wrapped around Gideon's ankle. No. She grabbed him, pulled, but the roots were stronger. He slipped from her hands like wet stone, screaming as he was dragged toward the open door. The last thing she saw was his face, eyes wide, mouth open, a soundless plea. Then the door slammed shut. She was alone again, and the mark on her chest was glowing, faint. But there, the curse doesn't punish, it spreads. She stood in the ruined hallway, shaking, blood on her hands, and realized the line between human and monster had vanished. Still with me? Then you've heard the howl too. Subscribe before the next full moon finds you. Marla didn't sleep. She couldn't, not with the basement breathing beneath her. The roots had gone quiet, but she knew they were still there, waiting, watching. She wrapped Gideon's coat around her shoulders. His blood had already dried, stiff in the fabric. His voice echoed in her mind. You broke it open. The mark on her chest pulsed like a second heart, each beat colder, each one stealing more of her breath. The town was still asleep, unaware. She stepped out into the foggy night, toward the woods, toward the thing that had taken Gideon, that had taken so many. It wasn't just the widow anymore. It was everything she'd buried. She crossed into the trees. The pines opened like ribs, pulling her inward. Her breath frosted, her fingertips numbed. But she felt hot, like something beneath her skin was burning its way out. A howl pierced the silence. But it didn't come from behind her. It came from within her. She dropped to her knees, gasping, hands to the dirt, claws now, nails gone, bone bending. Her scream caught halfway between a sob and a snarl. She was changing, but not fully, not like before. This wasn't the curse taking her. It was her stepping into it, one foot in control, one in instinct. The pines opened onto a clearing, and there she stood, the widow. No longer a woman, no longer a monster, something in between. Her face still wore the shape of Marla's grandmother, but the eyes, they were hers now, the same shade, the same rage. "You called me here," the widow said. "No," Marla growled through bloodied teeth. "I became you." They fought beneath the red moon, not claws and fangs, but memory. Each strike pulled at pain, her mother's last breath, her father's betrayal, Gideon's scream. Every wound the widow made was one Marla had carried all along. But then came the final moment. The widow stumbled, gasping. Marla held her down, claws at the throat, heart racing. She could end it, tear the curse out by force, but in the widow's eyes was fear, not of death, of loss. "You don't end a curse by killing it," the widow whispered. "You end it by forgiving." Marla let go. She collapsed beside her, weeping, the transformation receding like a tide. The mark stopped glowing, and the forest fell silent. One howl, one heartbeat, one last chance. Subscribe to see if she makes the right choice. Silver Pines never changed. Not really. The fog still rolled in every morning, like it had something to hide. The trees still whispered when the wind passed through, and the streets still echoed with the kind of quiet that only comes after something's been lost. They never found Gideon's body. The sheriff claimed he left town again, like he always did. The official report said nothing about claws or marks or blood. Marla didn't correct them. She just watched from her motel window, bandaged and pale, eyes darker than before. Not tired, just older. The town had a way of doing that, they say. If you go deep enough into the woods, you'll hear the widow still. But she doesn't scream anymore. She hums a lullaby for the betrayed, a song for those who carry too much guilt to sleep. Marla visits the clearing once a week, not to fight, not to forget, just to remember, and to make sure the roots haven't started growing back. They haven't. But sometimes she thinks she sees movement at the tree line. Not a monster, not her. Someone new. And in that moment she knows the curse isn't gone. It's just waiting for the next one who loses their way in these woods. The motel phone rings at 3:06 a.m. Marla answers without saying a word, a voice on the other end. "I need to know, was it real?" She closes her eyes, then hangs up. Some stories aren't answers, they're warnings. If the howl still echoes in your ears, like, share, and subscribe. Because next time it might not be just a story, it might be your street. And for those who hunger for more, step deeper into the shadows with our ultimate werewolf horror playlist, linked in the description below. In the world of horror, the scariest things happen when you least expect them, and trust me, you don't want to be left in the dark. Welcome to the darkness.